today we're going deep, really deep, into a case that's as intriguing as it is unsettling.
Okay, I'm ready.
It's a story about a figure, really, shrouded in darkness and shrouded in mystery,
Right.
whose actions left this chilling trail across America.
Yeah.
We're talking about Israel Keyes, and we're going to be using excerpts from his Wikipedia entry to try and unpack, try and understand what made this meticulously cruel killer tick, what made him do what he did.
Well, I think one of the things that strikes me right away is the sheer level of premeditation. You know, and it wasn't just about the act of killing itself, but it was this meticulous, almost theatrical buildup to it.
Right.
I mean, just imagine burying murder kits, and these murder kits would include weapons and restraints, things for body disposal years in advance, strategically placed near future crime scenes. Like, how...
It's chilling.
I know.
To think about that level of forethought and planning.
Yeah.
What kind of mind conceives of something like that?
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do today. I mean, that's what we're going to try to unravel here.
Yeah.
What set Keyes apart? What were the roots of this darkness? I think to understand that, we need to go all the way back to his beginnings.
Okay. So Keyes' childhood was, well, unusual is kind of an understatement. I mean, he was one of 10 children.
Wow.
Homeschooled. And his family moved from Utah to this really remote area in Washington state.
Okay.
And they were involved with some, well, let's just say pretty fringe religious groups.
Yeah, tell me more.
So first, they were part of a white supremacist group called Christian Identity.
Oh, wow.
And then later, a church that preached British Israelism.
So those are some pretty specific and frankly extreme ideologies.
I mean,
Christian Identity, just so we're all clear, that movement believes that white Europeans are the true descendants of the Israelites.
wow.
While British Israelism claims that the British monarchy is descended from the lost tribes of Israel. So, I mean, it's a fascinating and somewhat unsettling backdrop for his formative years.
Yeah, and even within those isolated communities, Keyes stood out.
Really?
Even as a kid, there were reports of disturbing behavior. There was shooting at houses with BB guns, setting fires, stealing guns.
That's pretty alarming stuff for a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's and this is something that a lot of people talk about, is the cruelty towards animals. I mean, a lot of experts and criminologists say that that can often be a sign or an early warning sign for violent behavior. I mean, this wasn't just typical childhood mischief.
Right.
There seemed to be this real darkness there, even as a kid.
It sounds like it, yeah.
And then in his teenage years, things get really dark.
Okay.
He rejects his faith completely.
Wow.
Delves into Satanism, starts fantasizing about ritualistic murder. Talk about a complete 180.
It's almost a classic case of rebellion, but with a deeply, deeply disturbing twist.
Oh.
It's like he was almost actively seeking out the antithesis of his strict religious upbringing.
And that internal conflict, that pull between light and darkness, that seems to have continued into adulthood. Keyes enlists in the U.S. Army, serves seemingly without incident.
Okay.
And even received an honorable discharge.
So you'd think that would suggest some semblance of normalcy. Right, I mean, he served without incident.
Yeah.
But then, I mean, look a little closer and there's these, like, cracks in the facade.
Okay.
Gets arrested for DUI, and he later admitted to attempting to rape a sex worker
Wow.
while stationed in Egypt. So it seems like whatever darkness he was trying to suppress was starting to bubble up to the surface.
So after leaving the military, he settles in Nia Bay, Washington, has a daughter, and for all intents and purposes, he's living a normal life. But this sinister side, this darkness, it's lurking beneath the surface.
It is, and that brings us to the really terrifying part of the story. Keyes' modus operandi. He was meticulous, deliberate, absolutely ruthless, but we'll dive into that in the next part. Keyes, he's really a chilling example, a chilling reminder of how appearances can be so deceiving. You know, you think about it. He was living what looked like a normal life, blending in, you know, fitting into society. All the while, he's meticulously plotting and carrying out his dark fantasies.
Yeah, it's terrifying to think about. You know, it really challenges the idea that we can spot evil
right
just by looking at someone. He was a master of disguise, literally and figuratively.
Exactly, and his modus operandi, it reflects that. He meticulously planned each crime, you know. aiming for randomness to throw off investigators. He traveled all over across the United States, targeting victims in different states, using cash to avoid leaving a digital trail, and, meticulously planning his trips to minimize his footprint. So
it's like he was playing this twisted game of cat and mouse with law enforcement, always staying one step ahead.
And then you add to that the detail about the murder kits. I mean...
Oh, yeah.
Keyes would bury these caches of supplies, weapons, restraints, things for body disposal, years in advance, strategically placed near the locations where he planned to commit his crimes. This wasn't, some spur-of-the-moment violence. This was calculated, cold, and premeditated.
Yeah, it's like something out of a horror movie. Except this was all too real. And I read this, and it just sent chills down my spine. He even admitted to enjoying watching the light fade from his victims' eyes.
Oh, God.
As they struggled for life. I mean, it's just bone-chilling.
I think that detail in particular speaks volumes about his psyche. It wasn't just about the act of killing. It was about the power, the control, and the perverse satisfaction that he derived from taking a human life.
So who were his victims? I mean, it seems like he went to great lengths to choose them randomly, but was there any pattern at all?
Well, Keyes confessed to 3 murders. Bill and Lorraine Currier from Vermont and Samantha Koenig from Alaska.
Okay.
The Curriers were a couple in their 50s. Keyes broke into their home, tied them up, and took them to an abandoned farmhouse where he shot Bill and strangled Lorraine. Their bodies have never been found.
God. And then there's Samantha Koenig, 18-year-old barista, abducted from her workplace. He held her captive for days, even demanded a ransom from her family, before eventually killing her and disposing of her body in a lake.
And those are just the confirmed victims.
Right.
The FBI believes Keyes may be responsible for as many as 11 deaths.
11?
11. There are a number of unsolved cases that fit his profile.
Wow.
Spanning multiple states. Washington, New York, possibly even Florida, Texas.
It's a staggering number, and it's likely we'll never know the full extent of his crimes. I mean, he hinted at numerous other victims.
Right.
But he was always vague on the details.
It was.
It's as if he wanted to keep that information, almost as a final act of control, a chilling reminder of his power, even in death.
And remember, this is a guy, Keyes, who was deeply fascinated by other serial killers. I mean, he studied their cases. He, almost idolized Ted Bundy and seemed to relish in his own role as a predator.
It's a disturbing thought. I mean, the idea that someone could be so fascinated by such darkness.
It is. He was even found with books about serial killers in his possession, including Intensity and Mindhunter.
Oh, wow.
So it's almost as if he was trying to perfect his craft, learning from those who came before him.
What did he find admirable about these other killers? Was it their brutality or their ability to evade capture?
It's hard to say for sure.
Yeah.
But there are hints that he admired their intelligence, their meticulous planning, and their ability to blend into society. It's like he saw them as some sort of macabre role models,
So how did this master manipulator, this almost ghost-like figure, how did he finally get caught?
It seems that even the most meticulous criminals make mistakes. After abducting Samantha Koenig, Keyes used her debit card, leaving a digital trail that investigators were finally able to follow. It was a slip-up, a momentary lapse in his otherwise flawless execution. And it ultimately led to his capture in Texas, and he was extradited to Alaska to face charges for Koenig's murder.
But even behind bars, Keyes, he remained an enigma. He was a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface.
He even attempted to escape from custody, showing this continued desire for control and this refusal to be contained. And when that failed, he chose to end his own life in his prison cell.
Leaving behind this chilling suicide note that they call it an ode to murder and drawings of skulls. It's like he wanted to make sure that even in death, he would have the last word, leaving this final mark, this final imprint of his twisted legacy.
It's a haunting reminder that we may never fully understand the depths of human darkness.
No.
But we can try to learn from it.
And that's what we'll explore in the final part of our deep dive. Into the chilling case of Israel Keyes. What can we glean from this case? What lessons can we learn from this meticulous, cruel killer?
It's a lot to take in, you know? Delving into the mind of someone like Israel Keyes. It's a journey into the darkest corners of humanity, really. it leaves you with this unsettling feeling like you've stared into the abyss and the abyss has stared back, you know?
Yeah, and what's even more unsettling, I think, is the fact that we'll probably never truly know the extent of his crimes.
No. Well,
he hinted at so many other victims.
He did.
But he was always careful to keep those details shrouded in mystery.
Like those haunting skull drawings that they found in his cell after suicide. The FBI believes that those drawings represent the total number of his victims. 11. 11 lives brutally taken. 11 families forever haunted by their loss.
And then you think about all the other people out there.
Oh,
the families that are left wondering
if their loved ones might be among those unknown victims. It's a chilling thought, you know?
It is. The idea that there are families out there that may never get closure, may never know what truly happened to their loved ones.
Yeah.
It's hard to fathom the pain and suffering that this one man caused, and he seemed to get this perverse satisfaction from it all. You know,
I know.
There's a coldness, a detachment that's almost more disturbing than the violence itself, to me.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. It's I mean, it's the hallmark of a psychopath, isn't it? That lack of empathy, the inability to connect with the suffering of others. They see people as objects, you know, as pawns in their own twisted game.
So, I mean, what could have led him down this path? Was it his unconventional upbringing, his early fascination with violence, his rejection of religion, his turn towards the occult?
I mean, those are all potential factors, of course, but the truth is there's no single definitive answer.
Right.
I mean, we can speculate, we can analyze, but we may never really fully grasp the complex interplay of nature and nurture that creates a monster like Israel Keyes.
And maybe that's the most terrifying part of it all.
Right.
The idea that evil can be lurking in the most unexpected places.
It can.
You know, it can wear a mask of normalcy and blend in seamlessly into society.
Yep.
And it forces us to confront this really uncomfortable reality that darkness can exist anywhere.
Yeah.
Even within ourselves.
It's a sobering thought, but I think it's also a call to action in a way.
How so?
I think we need to be vigilant. I think we need to trust our instincts. And we need to be willing to speak up if we see something that seems amiss. I mean, we can't live in fear, but we can't afford to be naive either, I don't think.
Yeah, and Keyes' case also highlights the importance of communication and collaboration between law enforcement agencies. I mean, he was able to operate across state lines for so long, exploiting those gaps in information sharing. And that's how we avoided detection for so long.
Yeah, it's a reminder that we need to constantly adapt and improve our systems, and to really think about how to share information more effectively, to close those loopholes that predators like Keyes can slip through.
There's one final thought-provoking thing about this case that keeps coming back to me. Keyes went to extraordinary lengths to erase his tracks. He didn't want to leave any evidence behind. But in the end, it was his own arrogance, his belief that he was smarter than everyone else, that led to his downfall.
That use of Samantha Koenig's debit card, leaving that digital trail that ultimately led to his capture, it's almost poetic, isn't it? I mean, the very technology he sought to avoid became his undoing.
It's a reminder that no matter how carefully evil tries to conceal itself, the truth has a way of finding its way to the surface. And while we may never fully understand the mind of Israel Keyes, we can use his case, I think, as a grim reminder to be vigilant, to protect ourselves and our communities, and to never underestimate the darkness that can reside in the human heart.
And to never give up hope. That even in the darkest of cases, we can find some glimmer of understanding. We'll never have all the answers, but by studying cases like this, by trying to understand the motivations and the methods of these predators, I think we can learn to recognize the signs and hopefully prevent future tragedies and offer support to those whose lives have been touched by such unimaginable darkness.
It's a heavy topic, a dark journey. But sometimes facing the darkness is the only way to find the light.